You think you own your keys. But for thousands of years, keys were never about ownership. They were about control. Who gets in, who stays out. And today, the key isn't in your pocket anymore. It's watching you. For most of human history, a key was not something you owned. It was something that defined your place. Keys decided who belonged inside a space and who didn't. They weren't small, personal objects at first. They were heavy, built into doors, and controlled by whoever held power. Over thousands of years, keys changed shape, size, and material. Wood turned into metal. Locks became more complex. But their purpose never really changed. A key was never just about opening a door, it was about deciding access, about control. And to understand what keys are today, we have to go back to where they first appeared. The earliest locks didn't look anything like what we use today. Around 4,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, locks were made almost entirely of wood. They weren't small mechanisms hidden inside doors. They were large, heavy systems built directly into them. Inside the door, wooden pins would drop into place using gravity. To open it, a matching wooden key had to lift those pins at the exact same time. These keys were massive, too large to carry, too impractical to own personally. This wasn't about convenience, it was about control. Whoever controlled the door controlled access to storage rooms, homes, and valuables. The key didn't belong to an individual, it belonged to the space itself and to whoever held authority over it. At this point in history, a key wasn't something you carried with you, it was something you were allowed to use. To operate these early wooden locks, a different kind of key was needed. These were not small objects you slipped into a pocket. Early wooden keys were large, awkward tools, often as long as a forearm. Their shape wasn't decorative or symbolic. It was purely functional. Each key was carved to match a specific lock. The uneven teeth and grooves weren't flaws. They were the system. When inserted, the key had to lift every wooden pin at once. Miss one, and the door stayed closed. Because of their size and weight, these keys rarely left the building. They were stored nearby, used when permission was given. This made access slow, deliberate, and visible. In the earliest systems, security didn't rely on secrecy. It relied on physical presence, effort, and authority. A key wasn't something you owned. It was something you were trusted with, temporarily. Eventually, keys had to change for one simple reason. People started moving. As cities grew and daily life became more mobile, a key that lived beside a door was no longer enough. In the Roman world, we begin to see something new. Small, handheld metal keys. Bronze and iron replaced wood. The key became stronger, smaller, and far more precise. Instead of lifting large wooden pins, it worked with tighter metal components, and it could travel with you. This is the moment the key becomes personal. You could carry access on your body. You could lock a box, a door, a storage room, and keep the only way in with you. But the idea behind it didn't change. A Roman key wasn't just a tool, it was a statement. This space is restricted. Not everyone gets in. The key didn't simply open things, it drew a line between the inside and the outside, and told you which side you were on. In Rome, keys didn't just unlock doors, they signaled authority. Some people wore keys openly on rings or belts, not because it was convenient, but because it was visible. A key could mean you managed storage, controlled property, or had access others didn't. It was a quiet badge of trust and power. The more valuable the space, the more important the key holder became. And the more security mattered, the more keys started to represent status as much as function. This idea never really disappeared. Even today, access is still a form of power. The object changed over time, but the message stayed the same. Some doors are not meant for everyone. As locks spread across homes, workshops, and fortifications, a new problem appeared: copying. If a key could be replicated, a lock was only a delay. So medieval locksmiths began turning security into craftsmanship. Keys gained more complex teeth and irregular patterns. Inside the lock, metal parts multiplied. Wards, springs, levers, all designed to block the wrong key. In this era, keys became less universal and more specific. A key was no longer just a tool that fits. It was a mechanical solution to a particular door in a particular place. And because everything was handmade, the system relied on precision and time. Making a lock wasn't quick. Making a matching key wasn't easy. By the Renaissance, this complexity didn't disappear. It evolved. Keys began to carry a second role: beauty. Their shapes became more refined, sometimes even ornamental. Security was still the purpose, but now it had style. The Industrial Revolution changed keys in the same way it changed everything else: scale. When cities expanded and housing multiplied, locks could no longer be handcrafted one at a time. They had to be produced in large numbers, with consistent parts. This is where standardization enters the story. Keys became more uniform. Locks became interchangeable systems instead of individual pieces of craftsmanship, and security shifted from unique and handmade to reliable and repeatable. That had a cost. When millions of similar locks exist, the idea of a perfect, uncopyable key starts to fade. So, manufacturers responded with new designs meant to raise the difficulty again: pin tumblers, tighter tolerances, more controlled cuts. The key was still metal, still physical, still something you could hold. But now it belonged to a much larger machine: modern society. Access wasn't just personal anymore, it was infrastructure. By the early 20th century, the house key becomes familiar. A small piece of metal cut into a pattern designed to fit one lock, and only one lock. It's simple, cheap, and everywhere. And for most people, this is what a key is. But the weakness is obvious. It can be lost, stolen, or copied. The moment the wrong person has it, the lock stops being security and becomes a suggestion. So the next evolution wasn't just about making better metal keys. It was about removing the key from metal altogether. Once access became a large-scale system, the key started to change form again. First, it flattened into a card. Instead of a metal shape, access became a piece of information. Something you could carry but not easily understand or copy by sight. Then it became even less visible. With RFID, the key didn't need to touch anything. A signal could identify you at a distance. At that point, the important part was no longer what you held, but what the system could recognize. And that opened the door to the biggest shift of all: you. Fingerprints, faces, and other biometrics replaced the idea of a separate object. The key stopped being something you owned and became something you are. But modern access doesn't stop there. Increasingly, systems look at patterns: where you are, when you arrive, how you move, what seems normal for you. The key becomes continuous, always checking, always deciding. It's still the same ancient idea: access and control, just hidden behind technology that never needs to look like a key. So keys never really disappeared. They just changed costumes. We started with heavy wooden systems built into doors. Then we carried metal keys in our pockets. And now the key is often invisible, embedded in infrastructure, tied to identity, and verified in the background. The future is moving in the same direction. Less friction, fewer objects, more automatic decisions. A door won't ask what you have. It will decide who you are, and that brings us back to the oldest purpose of a key. Not opening. Access. Control. So here's the question. When the key becomes you, what happens when access is taken away? Tell me, would you rather carry a key or be the key?